Hey everybody, so welcome to the Leadership Lunch for our new individuals who are joining for the first time. To set the stage for this, this is a discussion. This is not a lecture, and we have really good, candid conversations, and I will guide the conversations, but please be prepared to share lots and share your insights and share your thoughts because the people tend to get more out of the discussion from what the group shares than what I do, and that's good. That's the way we want it. And so when I was thinking about, what I want for a topic this month, and I was thinking about, well, I was looking at all the Thanksgiving kind of posts and the Giving Tuesday things, and I'm like, we haven't had a discussion about gratitude in a long time. It seems like an appropriate time of year to have a discussion about that. And everything is from a leadership lens. So the first question that I'll ask and throw out to you guys as the group is, well, what is gratitude to you? Who'd like to go first?
I'll go. I'm never shy.
All right, please, Jeannie, what you got for
So,
us?
gratitude to me is just taking the time to show some genuine thanks and appreciation to someone in the workplace. It's for a job well done, or just a quick thank you for support, or just showing general appreciation. I think in the workplace, we don't do the best job of that, at least in my experience and some of the organizations that I've worked for. We've got several different recognition programs that we have at the current company where I am. And we're trying to reinforce this whole concept of recognition, showing appreciation, and gratitude.
Okay. Awesome. Elizabeth, how about you? In your own opinion, what do you see as gratitude?
Sorry, who did you call out?
I did call on you, Elizabeth.
Oh, okay. I echo the same thing Janine said, and I think it's important to take the time, like she said, and recognize, your team, your leadership, etc., that have, helped you over the year. And I just had a celebration yesterday with my full team on a successful project and invited my executives there, and they did a wonderful job, and also, giving some shout outs and appreciating the team. So that went really well.
Yeah, because you were an IT project manager, is that correct?
That's correct.
Nice. All right.
That's wonderful.
So, Helvin, Becca, first time here that I noticed you are able to come on and share with the group a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm Melvin. I'm with Catholic Charities. I think it's just taking stock of kind of what you have, right? So what you have both career wise and the skills on your team versus what you want, and just being thankful
Mm-hmm.
for those things.
Yeah. Um, so, couple thoughts then. Why is it important? What's the value in it? Talked a little bit about it and what gratitude is, but what do we get from it? What do you guys think? Who wants to go first this time? Elizabeth, we'll start
I
with you this time.
can go first. I like to try to understand from my team like what motivates them, and then make sure that in what I'm doing fits that need. For example, I used to work at the BBC World Service back in the mid 90s, long time ago in the UK. And I was wanting to recognize and call out some people, and I didn't realize in their culture that was embarrassing for them, and they did not want to be called out. So
Hmm.
they did like a group thing, but they did, I mean, it was, very taboo to call them out individually. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And that was the first time that I really focused on what motivates people, what gets them excited, what would they appreciate. And so I try to do that because I do have international teams. And so there's a lot of cultural factors that go in. And
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
so, for a lot of the members on my team, technical members, they want to be recognized by their executive leadership, and the name recognition, and the kudos to them from their leadership. And so that's why, like the meeting I had yesterday, I was so thrilled to have 3 senior executives on there that got to see who was on the team, what they did, and so I think that goes a long way, at least for IT members that I have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a lonely world, because most of them just want to like sit in their own little quiet bubble and not engage with anybody else and get their stuff done. And they oftentimes work at night and in the dark, because that's the way they like it. They could be a different breed. They can be, especially those that are writing code. Helen, what about you? What's important about gratitude, you think?
I think it helps to reframe my mindset to be one that's a little bit more positive.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it for me is just recognizing the little things that probably wouldn't have happened without the folks there. The international ones kind of hits home a bit. So especially if like the folks that are sitting in the international chair aren't a part of headquarters, right? A lot of times those team members can suffer in silence, right? So being able to recognize like, okay, here's here's something that this individual did that actually managed a country versus a country of entities versus someone at someone's stateside, just because I can see them better. So I think I think it's important in that perspective, just to be able to be positive and to hone in on those things that aren't so visible.
Yeah. As a leadership practitioner, and as a somebody that loves to see people grow and see growth in that organization in the individual level, I always like to remind people in the discussion that the basic tenet of human behavior is that humans will do what they're rewarded for. That's the basic
like dogs.
Yes, dogs as well, but I'm in human behavior, not animal behavior.
Yeah.
So, but humans will do what they're rewarded for.
Yeah.
And if we reward people for the wrong things, well, we reinforce the wrong behaviors. And recognizing and rewarding the behaviors we want repeated is the best way for us to change people's behaviors. We recognize and reward the behavior we want repeated. We acknowledge and fix and correct the behavior we want changed. And I think that the gratitude becomes one of those two things that, recognize and reward. And that makes for a good discussion. What's the difference between recognizing and rewarding? Jeannie, what do you think? What's the difference between a recognition and a reward?
So that's actually a really good question, because a lot of people think that it's one and the same, and it's actually quite different. So recognition is more around showing gratitude and showing appreciation for something, whereas a reward is something like, to me, it's more tangible. It's
Yeah.
something that you give, like, for example, as a result of someone being with the organization for a period of time, or for
Mm-hmm.
someone's birthday. Whereas gratitude and appreciation are a little different. It's just like genuine appreciation for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe that gratitude can take the form of either appreciation, of recognition, or a reward. But you're right. A recognition is an acknowledgement. A reward typically comes with something of value. There's something of value attached to a reward. And it could be monetary, it could be, something else, but it's got something of value. And oftentimes what we do in an organization is we use them in the wrong way, and we devalue them a little bit. So here's the formula that I like using, and I encourage people to do when they're thinking about the two: is you recognize people for their effort, you reward people for performance. So Elizabeth, we'll use your example. So in your celebration stuff, what were a couple of efforts that deserved good recognition?
A lot of extra hours
Mhm.
putting forward to make sure that we're hitting deadlines. Team supporting each other. I'm trying to think how to answer that without giving too much away. Sorry.
I don't know, give away as much as you're willing to. We're not going anywhere. So, I mean, but so in that same scenario, what were some performances that were outstanding that deserved rewards versus just recognitions?
I got to think about that. We had 19 people that we did give rewards to out of the team. So those people went, I guess, above and beyond what is typically done. And I mean, the project we just celebrated, we had major efforts going on for a year and a half. So it was a long, they stuck with it, self-motivated, they pushed forward to make this happen.
Okay. So again, I'm hearing a lot of effort things. So what was a tangible, not just effort, but an accomplishment that somebody accomplished in there? Like somebody did something like,
well, getting the environment set up and
okay,
doing development and completing the workflows that needed developing, finishing the quality assurance testing, have successful DR exercises, and being able to deliver the environments to the customer on time. All of those things were achieved.
Yeah. And that becomes the challenge for us as leaders is how are we differentiating the two and treating the two slightly different? Because, working in extra, putting in the time, okay, those are our efforts. But if you said, hey, this individual caught 16 bugs in their quality that had they not gotten caught would have caused the project to not work. That might be an area of performance. So both are important, but I think it's valuable if we identify the differences and see, all right, it's still both forms of gratitude, but if we just reward everybody for effort, we dilute the value of it. It's kind of like that everybody gets a trophy situation. If everybody's getting a reward just because they put in lots of time or put in lots of effort and did what they're supposed to do, we devalue the actual reward portion of it. But what do you guys think? Can we over appreciate people? All right, Jeannie, you're shaking your head no. Elaborate on that. I agree with you, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, if you think about this just from a personal perspective, when someone takes the time to show appreciation or gratitude for something that you've done, it has, an impact on your attitude, on your level of happiness at work. It impacts your engagement. It impacts a lot of things, including the bottom line. So I don't think there's any such thing as like being over gracious or over appreciated.
Yeah, I think that we can overdo rewards, but you can never overdo recognitions. It's impossible. If somebody does something great in the morning and you show them that appreciation, and then they do something great in the afternoon, you'll be like, well, I don't know if I should say anything because I said something this morning. I'm like, well, of course you should say something. Of course you do. You celebrate all the wins, no matter when they happen. But a couple other thoughts here on the value of it. The desired behavior, to me, that's the most important thing. That's what we want. That's how we change our organizations, and that's how we make our organizations great. Is we help reinforce the right behaviors. If we do that, then that's where magic happens. When we reinforce bad behaviors, then we get garbage. Um, you know, engagement, thinking about how people are engaged, those positive interactions. You're absolutely right. You kind of mentioned that a little bit. We feel good about each other, both when we give and when we receive. It becomes easy for us to get bogged down in what's not going well. Well, let's spend a little bit of time talking about what is going well. And it gives you an internal focus versus an external focus. And then, it kind of helps guide that team. And quite frankly, it makes us more appealing as a leader. And those are good things. Now, so far, all of our discussion has been focused on the recipient. Let's take a little bit of moment here and let's talk about what is the impact on the giver, on you, the leader, giving this. Helvin, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of what I alluded to earlier is it's putting you, or actually puts me in a more positive frame of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, recognizing the little things often just generally puts you in a positive outlook for anything else you're doing.
Mandy, I appreciate you joining us. Are you able to come on and share your thoughts a little bit? What is the value of, on you as the leader when you're giving people gratitude?
I thought we were turning it around.
We are on
Flipped
this
it back
one.
on me. Well, it makes me feel good to give gratitude.
Yeah. Makes you feel good. We can't minimize the value that it has on the giver of this gratitude.
Especially if you're a leader, right? Because other people will see that and it has more impact.
Yep. And make no mistake about it, a human resource manager is a leader all the time. You're always a leader. So the interesting thing, there are some physical changes that happen in our body when we give gratitude. It may seem a little bit strange, but we actually are physically better. Lowers our blood pressure, makes us a little bit healthier, and it refreshes us a little bit. So there are some physical manifestations of gratitude. Psychological, Helen hit those a little bit on there. We're throwing out that positive energy, and we're feeling more positive energy around us. And it's a little hard to be, have the blues when you're sharing other people's success and you're talking about their success. Makes you a little more optimistic. And then socially, it changes how we engage with other people in a positive way. It connects us and we feel less isolated, and it makes it easier for us to engage with other people. So sometimes if we have trouble engaging with somebody, if we can think about something positive to say towards somebody else, then that makes it easier on us. So there are a lot of cool effects on you, the giver. So let's not minimize and let's not forget about it. Yes, the impact on the organization and on the other person is great, but it's also valuable for you, the giver. So Elizabeth, you gave us a great story already on a way of demonstrating some gratitude. Who else has got some good stories on something that they've done in a way that they've really demonstrated some gratitude? Jeannie, what about you? How about something from you on a time when you've demonstrated some gratitude?
So a time that I've demonstrated gratitude, I try to do it a lot. But I can tell you a quick story about, actually a couple of stories about when someone showed gratitude to me.
Okay.
So I have been very fortunate to have had several leaders in my career that did show a lot of appreciation and gratitude. And one in particular, I had gone on a trip to California and checked into my hotel, got to my room, and there were a dozen red roses and some candy and a card from my boss,
Oh,
which I thought was so incredible. That was just such a nice gesture. And the card said something to the effect of, thank you for what you do, work hard, play hard, kind of thing.
all
Um,
right.
and she was really good about sending like text messages with quotes about being thankful and all that. Also had a leader several years ago. I was going through a really challenging time in my life. I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. I had actually gone out on leave 2 times. I had been written up, putting on a performance improvement plan, and was starting to get better and turn a corner. And my boss actually bought me this like plaque that said something to the effect of, I believe in you. We're glad you're here, or something to that effect. And that
Yeah.
just meant so much to me with her knowing my history and what I had been through at an organization that I worked for previously. And then I was still struggling a little bit working for her. That just like really, really touched my heart and meant a lot to me that she would take the time to acknowledge that she knew that I was going through a tough time. Whereas a lot of leaders, when they've got employees that are struggling with mental health issues, it's like, don't talk about that, don't address it, don't discuss it. And she just really went out of her way to make me feel valued and appreciated, and that she was, on my side. It was
Yeah,
nice.
it's a great story, and I wish we did bring that out into the open a whole lot more because it's
Uh-huh.
valuable. It's a discussion worth having.
It
Uh,
absolutely is.
it's not
Um,
something to be shying away
as they
from.
say, most people that you know are struggling with something or going through something. Um, and we just, in the workplace, we just don't do the best job at, talking about those things and being there and supporting one another. So that really meant a lot to me.
I would venture to say that everybody that you engage is going through something.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah.
What is it? Everyone you know is fighting some sort of battle that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Gene. That's a wonderful story.
Hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yep. Janet, how about you from the Fort Bend ISD? Like, what do you guys? You got any good stories about some gratitude there? Can you join us and chat a little bit? Did I catch a
Sorry.
mid-bite?
Yes, you did. Hello,
Uh,
everyone.
Hi,
Yes,
Janet.
well, hi. Well, I was, I had a very good moment, something similar to like uh, Jeannie, going through a lot and having some challenges. And I was tasked to do a vendor fair, an annual vendor fair for this district. And kind of, put everything together, kind of working with everybody, and everybody's getting on board. And of course, as you know, it's a lot of work. And it ended up being 900 vendors attending. That's not including the exhibitors that was on the floor. But internally, I was like, not like openly expressing anything, kind of like grunting on the inside because of everything you have to do and all that goes with it. And I'm standing on stage and just finished my opening remarks, and a voice whispered in my ear, phenomenal. And I was like, oh my God, they see it. They recognized it.
Now, is that your internal voice, or did someone was external said that?
That was external.
Okay,
Somebody
all right. I
walked
was
up
like, I
and
want
whispered in
to
my
make sure I
ear.
clarified that.
Yeah, somebody whispered in my ear, phenomenal. And when it was all said and done, um, they were just elated about it and actually have been asking me, okay, when is the next one for 2026? Keep us
Yeah.
posted, da 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 da. But at first, Jeannie, I was like, oh my God, no, you all didn't do this to me, you know. But it all panned
No.
out, and I'm excited. I was excited about that moment.
Nope. And as a small business owner, all the things that you do to try to help bring those small businesses in and give them an equal opportunity and a
Yeah,
chance for those, I definitely appreciate all of those things that you're doing out there. I definitely do for those others out there.
thank you.
Yeah. So, the one story I'll tell is I'll tell a story about Keegan, one of my engineers when I was an engineering manager. And Keegan was a great engineer. And Keegan was working on a project for BP and he was getting ready to do the installation. All the equipment, this is for subsea oil and gas equipment that's getting put on the ocean floor, about 4,000 or 5,000 feet below the surface of the water. So, complicated stuff. And as he's looking at this installation, he's like, wait a minute, this is not going to work. There was an error that got all the way through design, through the manufacturing, through everything. And he caught this error that had gotten missed. Don't know how it got missed, but it got missed. And we estimated that had we installed it without fixing this error, it would have cost around $25 million to fix. So we're not talking about a small error. We're talking about a big catch, right? So thinking about all those principles and being like, okay, yep, I want to recognize that performance, recognize the effort, but this is a reward the performance moment. So we had a similar system, kind of like what you just described there in your love system. It was called Spotlight on Excellence, and it went from $25 at the low end to $1,000 at the high end. And the $1,000 high end required the CEO to approve it. So I went through every single wicket to include talking to the CEO to get this approved. Got it approved. Feeling all good, right? So we're at this, we're at a quarterly meeting we have with all of his peers, all the other engineers, about 75 people or so of the 125 that we had. So it was a good sized group. And I bring him up and I talk about what he did and I present him with the plaque and the little $1,000 gift certificate and everything. And feeling like I did everything right. So when I come back afterwards, we come back from the meeting, Keegan comes into my office and Keegan says, Ken, don't ever do that to me again. That was the worst experience of my life. And so I asked him, of course, please sit down, tell me a little bit more. He says, I was so embarrassed up there. It was absolutely so uncomfortable. I didn't know it was coming. And that was just a horrible experience for me. Please don't do that again. And what I failed to recognize was, how Keegan wanted to be rewarded and that would be embarrassing to him as a quiet professional, that he didn't want that spotlight. So, as a leader, then of course, I apologize, because when you do something wrong, that's what we do. We apologize and we figure, well, how do I do it better next time? So that's what I asked him. Like, how would you prefer that I would have done that? He said, honestly, if you would have just come and sat down next to me and given it to me and told me, I would have been happy with that. So yeah, very similar to Elizabeth's story about, the UK in general. And my key takeaway that I had from that one is I rewarded Keegan how I would have liked to have been rewarded, not how he wanted to be. So really taking a little bit of time and asking people, that's the secret. It's not anything overly complicated. We just ask them. So if we recognize the value on the leader, we recognize the value on the organization, we recognize all these great things about it, let's chat a little bit about why do leaders struggle to do it? Who'd like to go first? Elvin, how about you? Why do you think leaders struggle to show gratitude?
Yeah, I mean, that's That's a good psychological question, right? I mean, I think the output correlates to the input, right? So folks that typically don't receive gratitude are less apt to give it out. I think the other piece is if you're perhaps managing a low performing team and you're tying gratitude to outcomes way too much,
Mm-hmm.
that may that may drive a little less attaboys or attagirls. Yeah, I mean that those are probably the only few reasons I could think of.
Okay. So, Jeannie, you had a couple of thoughts in there. Why don't you share them with the group?
Yeah, I've overseen recognition programs at several different companies that I've worked for. And I've actually heard leaders say that they don't have time to show recognition or appreciation. They think it requires like a big party of some sort or some big event or money in the budget to provide, lunch for employees. And it's really, when I think of gratitude and appreciation, I think of like the really small gestures, because those are the ones that actually go further with employees than providing a pizza party.
Yep, I agree. Elizabeth, what about you? Why do you think leaders struggle with this?
Well, it does take time, to think about it. And the situation that I struggle with is we have points that we give to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a small bucket of points, like everybody, all my peers get the same amount of points at the start of the year. And we can use those points to award those out to, show gratitude to team members or whoever. And, you have to give a minimum amount of points. So basically, I can give the minimum amount of points to about 8 people, or I can give a nice bucket of points to only a couple people.
Yep.
And when I'm managing a team with 30 to 50 people, it's a hard thing to do. And then how can you be fair? And that's why I was thrilled when one of the managers said, "Hey, she went for me to get 19 people, a big chunk of those points
Nice.
each when we had to get, go up the chain of management." And I was so thrilled that she was able to do that, because otherwise I'd have to pick and choose. And it's stressful on me to think about, right? Who am I going to pick? And then will they say, "Hey, I got recognized," and, "Oh, you didn't," there's that comparison. You have to be careful. So I think we get stuck in that cycle of not doing anything because you don't want to offend someone, right? If you're not able to show them, appreciation that way.
Yeah. And I think in my context and using my formula there, to me, the points are a reward based upon performance. And then you look at other ways of recognizing people for effort. But it's really the things that stand out that you say, oh, if everybody did this, we would be better off. And that's that kind of differentiator for those kind of that point system. Yeah. Mandy, what about you? Why do you think leaders struggle to demonstrate gratitude? We'll go back to Mandy.
For my team, I do think that it has a lot to do with their concern they'll overlook somebody else if they reward one person, and maybe somebody else who's like quiet and keeps themselves gets overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. That could be something that we're worried about too. I think that I don't have time. Well, that's just about prioritizing your time. And that's just a poor choice in priorities. And that's not recognizing and understanding the value of it. That's what I call a lame excuse. That to me is, you're just not managing your time appropriately and seeing the value in it. That next one, we assume that they already feel it. Well, they know it. They know that they're valued. Yeah, maybe they don't. We make this assumption and so many times we're wrong. Some of that the things you guys talked a little bit about there is maybe misinterpreted is and that somebody else is getting this, and what about this, and maybe I'm not doing enough or anything else. Okay, manage that as it comes. Don't use it as an excuse not to do it. And we talked a little bit about devaluing it, and I think that that's a smart way of you're right. We devalue it if we don't differentiate what it's for, and we'll talk about coming up here a couple of strategies to help with that. And and let's call it like it is. Some people are scared. We get a little nervous in it. Think about, we see something out there in public that is pretty cool. Do we go up to a stranger and recognize something to a stranger? Probably not, even though it's probably worthy of a little bit of gratitude. You see somebody pick something up and throw it in the trash. It's not theirs. Do we ever stop and show appreciation for those? We usually don't. So there's could be all kinds of things that we're scared of. And as I like to remind people that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is persevering in the face of it. And let's not allow fear to get in the way of doing a fantastic, wonderful thing. So let's think about some tips here. What are some things that we could tell our leaders to help them be more successful with their gratitude? Who'd like to go first on that one?
I'm a storyteller, so I'll tell a quick story.
All right.
Is anyone familiar with Bob Nelson? He has written several books on the topic of recognition. He's got like a book called 1001 Ways to Reward and Recognize. He's got one, I think, yeah, he's got several books, but his name is Bob Nelson. Um, and he is kind of the like expert in the area of recognition. And like I think he's the one that actually started um, the Employee Appreciation Day or something. Anyway, I've actually met him before. He's a very interesting fellow. But in one of his books, I came across an idea, and I should go back and see what organization did this. But there was a CEO, and he was having a difficult time remembering to like reward and appreciate and show gratitude to the employees in his organization. And so what he did is at the beginning of every day, he put three marbles in his left hand pocket. And that was kind of his reminder to take the time to stop by people's cubicles or office or call somebody or whatever the case may be. And each time he showed someone appreciation or gratitude, he would take one of the marbles from his left hand pocket and put it over in the right hand pocket. So by the end of the day, the ultimate goal was for him to have all three marbles in his right hand pocket. So, in some of the training courses that I have done in my past, I actually put together like little marble bags with three marbles in it and distribute it to the participants. And they really appreciated having something like tangible as a reminder to show appreciation. So maybe they just need like reminders. Hey, don't forget to appreciate. Don't forget to show gratitude.
A tactile, physical, reminder. Yeah.
Hmm.
Elvin, you look like you had a good comment on here. What are your ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think putting the gratitude in appropriate context. I'd like for my leaders to understand what their folks are doing, right? And be able to pick up on the little things. So when you're actually describing what you're thankful for, it doesn't come off as, you know, we I saw in the chat there's like we talked about like different systems, right?
Yeah.
To give out recognition. So we used to when we used to tier our recognition buy gift cards, right? So like, hey, if you did really, really well, you get like $1,000 gift card. But if you
Yep.
did like okay on something, we'd give you a thanks. Like it's like when you had no money, it was like a thank you instead of a gift card. So
Yep.
it's like the equivalent of that, right? In terms of it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I did something good, but it wasn't to that level of good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think being able to um, understand the different nuances of what the team's doing, be able to deliver the gratitude in a way that shows you understand that and you can pick up on those little things is important. And it
Yeah.
also drives like some more authentic behavior.
Yeah. Now, a couple of tips in here. Jeannie, your idea on that one, the marbles, that's kind of like scheduling a little bit. Helen, you're absolutely right. You got to be authentic. You got to be sincere. It's got to be meaningful. You have to truly appreciate and truly recognize the value in it, and it not patronize somebody, because they'll see through that insincerity. We often think about the big wins, but we really ought to start thinking about some of the small wins too. I mean, Elizabeth, you are, as a project manager, and your last project, you probably had probably 1,000 line items on your project schedule.
It would be close to that, yeah, if I
Yeah.
counted it all.
Yeah. So, I wonder then, on those 1,000 items, we'll just use that for a round number. How many of those got some good dedicated gratitude for completing, of those 1,000 line items? Best guess, how many do you say that you did some form of gratitude for those 1,000 line items? Not a test.
Probably five. Probably five.
Okay. You feel that's too little or too many?
That's too little, but I was limited
Yeah.
on what I could do.
Sure. We have to look at what our system is and what we can and can't do. But yeah, I mean, if we think about something like that, hey, maybe, a goal next time might be, hey, for my next project, I want to recognize, 5% of our line items. Or what are the major, buckets that deserve some form of gratitude? What are the major milestones in there? And you could even in there in your project management plan, like put in a note, recognize, when this is complete. You can give yourself a task on there and assign it to you. Most of your software, depending on what you use, you have unlimited fields.
I feel like I've done a good job though with, not giving someone something tangible they can do something with, giving them visibility to the leadership team of what they've done. So I have, that's where I focus my efforts, because that's something I can do to get them like name recognition and the visibility that most of my team members really want.
They want to give a big shout out to this individual. They just got all this stuff done, and here's what they did, and want to make sure everybody knows about it. Yeah, absolutely right. But let's not always just look for the big accomplishment. Let's look for some small stuff things. Make it a daily habit. Find the things out there that people are doing right. Let them know as you see it. So I like using the term, when we think about levels of employees, we got our high performers, we got our mismatches, but we also have our pillars. And most people fall into that pillars, and our pillars are what gives our organization strength. They're the ones doing the work every single day. And maybe they're not, crushing it above and beyond, but you know what? If they're meeting the expectations, that's a win. You got to love the people that are meeting the expectations. That's a fantastic thing. Somebody's meeting the expectations, showing up every day, doing what they're supposed to do, and always being there. Man, you got to love those people. No one says you got to just be crushing it to be showing appreciation. Don't skip out on those ones. Think about not just your team, but who on the outside of your team. Who are your suppliers? Who are, the supporters out there? Who are the people not on your team that are allowing your team to be successful? Think outside your team as well. Learning opportunities and growth is a way of showing gratitude. Hey, you're doing great on this. I want you to grow so you can do more. That's a form of gratitude. Make sure that your words convey that. And then, let's not just be good with us showing gratitude. Let's help those around us do it. Let's encourage them. If the people doesn't have any time, hey boss, when's the last time you gave somebody a thank you? Or you say, hey, I got a couple people that would really appreciate a little bit of a word. Can you take a few minutes to stop by their desk and congratulate them on this? Instead of you giving it, you ask one of the senior leaders to do it. Kind of similar to what I think Elizabeth is doing. That shout out, and maybe ask one of the other leaders, hey, can you go over, this is what this person did? Can you show them some gratitude for it for me? I think it'll mean more coming from you than it does from me.
It becomes more challenging, I think, with our, most of my team, well, all of my team for the last 5 years have been virtual.
Yep.
And, in the past, you could go over to their desk, if you happen to be co-located with the majority of your team anyway, go over there to their desk and show that appreciation. And, I remember a project where I had a leader fly into town to meet with the client, and I asked him to please come by and just say hi to the team.
Yeah.
And he would not do it. And it ticked me off so bad. But it also made me think about, I don't want to be like that guy,
Yeah.
And then I had another manager that happened to fly into town for a totally different client. And I said, could you come by and just say hi to the team? And he did. It wasn't even his team, but it's the same organization.
Yeah.
And the team was thrilled with that,
Yeah.
and he took time to listen to them and hear from them. And that really resonated with me. And it, something that I think about all the time with my teams on, making sure that I'm doing with them.
Yeah.
So, but it does become challenging in the virtual world.
It does, but I'm one of those that don't allow it to become an excuse. You just means you got new things you got to work around. But all the things that you can do in the real world, you can do in this world, they're just a little different. So figure out what that looks like would be my advice to anybody that tells me, oh, well, I can't do it because we're not in person. Yeah, you can. Go figure it out. You're a smart person. Go figure it out. So I read this one article and I like this. And a lot of these we've come up with here. And this one was just on there, very specific. If you want to recognize you have to be specific about what it is you're recognizing. If you just tell somebody, hey, good job. For what? What'd I do? They have no idea what they did. Very, very specific about what behavior they did, because again, that's the behavior you want more of. Authentic, we covered that one already. Timely doesn't mean immediate. Timely means timely. Hey, that what you did 6 months ago was pretty good. Yeah, that might not have the same impact. Unexpected, that can always be a fun one. And, obviously, don't like the way I did my story, that was definitely unexpected, but it wasn't appreciated. But, if you can do something that they don't see coming, or that's a little bit different, or a little bit out of the ordinary, or a little bit wacky, or, a little bit fun, something that's just that's going to surprise them a little bit, it's going to be more memorable than the same old routine. Doesn't mean it's still not valuable. We talked about the sincerity of that already. And, what you're looking for is you want to reward and recognize and show gratitude in a way that allows people to know this is what they did and for them to want to do it again. Ultimately, we want that behavior. We want more of it. That's the whole goal. And that's not a bad thing. It's not an evil manipulation. That's a reality, is that we're recognizing people because we want to see more of that. We're showing gratitude because we want to see more of it. So that's what you got to make sure, is that your effort results in more of that. And I think one of the interesting adages we had is that you never want to reward people for doing something by lowering the standard. That's not an appropriate, reward. So if somebody shows up on time, the reward isn't, well, you can show up late. So, making sure that your reward increases the performance, not decreases. Yeah. I like that, Jeannie. Everyone's got some good intent. And then, personalized. I had one of my engineers, he loves Snickers bars. Loved Snickers bars. So I'd keep a little small bag, the little mini ones or whatever. And when something was done well, I'd kind of just toss one over to him. He'd land in front of him. He'd look up, he'd kind of smile. He'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool, And it cost me a bag cost me a couple of bucks. It would last me a little while too. We even had a little, we had people fill out a little like form. Hey, how do you like to be rewarded? How do you like, this? What do you like? We just asked people what their preferences were instead of trying to figure it out. Just go out there and ask. But, make it very personalized so that individual feels like, it's just special for them. I think maybe that's the best way of saying it, is make it feel special. Nobody on this group's taking this particular, test, but this is an assessment that I do through Academy Leadership, and knowing yourself and your own energies. Green tends to be very logical and orderly, so make it part of your plan. Put it on your calendar. Reds are those leaders that feel like they're too busy to do it. I like, Jeannie, I like your idea with the marbles. That's a good way. That would be a good reminder for somebody. Yellow is that people energy. They tend to be a little bit more open to it. And blues are always trying to get everything right. So they're oftentimes not focusing on what's going well. They're focusing on what do we need to fix. So understanding your own energies, how your own energies flow, and what you need to overcome for your own energies is an important aspect for a leader. So as we close out here the day, and I always like to think about, what are you willing to do differently? So based upon our conversations here today, what's a takeaway that you have that you're willing to do differently? Kelvin, we'll start with you. What are you willing to do differently than you were an hour ago?
Yeah, I kind of chuckled when you talked about like meeting expectations and celebrating that. Yeah, so I think probably a little bit more of that versus just, over and above.
Right. If they meet the expectations, awesome. That's what you want. That's success. I love it. All right. Elizabeth, how about you? What are you willing to do a little bit differently?
I don't know at this moment. Sorry.
Okay. All right. That's all right. Make
a concentrated effort to make sure I'm recognizing some of those people on the fringe, maybe.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Jeannie, what about you? What are you willing to do a little bit differently?
Gratitude is one of those things that I try to practice daily, just through my overall communications with people and interactions with people. I don't actually have any direct reports, so I'm not a leader, but I like to try to set a good example for our leaders. So I don't know, just continuing doing what I'm doing.
Maybe a challenge for you is to encourage other leaders who aren't doing it as well to make it a little bit more of their practice.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Mandy, how about you? What are you willing to do a little bit differently?
Well, you just said mine. I'm going to encourage my leaders to do that.
Love it.
But also, I'm going to take the marbles thing, and I think I'll use I work for Wilson, so I'm going to put the Wilson logo on some poker chips maybe.
Ooh, yeah.
And pass that out. That might be fun for them.
That would be very fun. Yep. Love it. Love it. Janet, how about you? What are you willing to do a little bit differently?
Leading by example, sharing with others to follow the same suit when it comes to encouraging others.
Awesome. Sean, I know you're usually just listening. I don't know if you're able to come on this time or not, but if you got any takeaways or anything you're willing to do a little differently?
Yes, we can. Sorry, I just came in about halfway. Yeah. In our team building business, we always talk about EPR, encourage, breathe, and recognize.
Yep.
So I need as a team leader, I need to practice this more because of my scientific background. I was trained to be a scientist, so a lot of time I'm trying to be mean, trying to be critical. But in people business, that's totally different. So I like your every month the webinar. It helps a lot. Thank you very much. Yeah, I need to try to practice the 3 marble things with my wife and my 2 daughters each every day. Thank you.
Yeah.
Start from
Now,
my home.
we still need to talk about what we want to do for what you want to do with your team. We've been talking about it back and forth for a little while. We've never come up with a firm plan yet. So let's
Let's make it happen 2026.
All right, I agree. So I put up a little poll in there. If there's anything that that you would like a little bit more info on or a little conversation about, I greatly appreciate everybody's time and for joining the leadership lunch, and had a couple of a few new folks, which I love, and a few that are coming back and good participants. Again, I do this every month, so January will be the next one. I think it's 5th. I can't remember the exact date, but it'll be the first Wednesday of January. It's not January 1st. I had that happen one year, and that was a disaster. That one didn't work very well. So, but we'll do this leadership lunch again. And anybody who wants to stick around, I'm happy to stick around and talk. We got about 2 more minutes, but otherwise, thank you so much for your time and energies and stuff. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Have a great day, everyone.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.